Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new mini PC designed for gaming by a company called Minisforum. This small device packs on a pretty fast AMD Ryzen 9 processor that can play a ton of games really well, especially considering its size. So in this video, we're going to do an unboxing. I'll show you what's in the box. I'll walk around the computer and show you all of its features. And of course, we're going to play a bunch of games, both old and new. Let's take a look. All right, let's go ahead and unbox it. Now, I do want to let you know that this was sent to me for review. However, all of the opinions are my own. Now, I said that this is a mini PC and it is tiny. Well, how tiny? Check this out. Here it is compared to the GameCube. It's funny because the GameCube actually looks huge here. But really, to get a sense of its size, let's go ahead and compare it to some PlayStation 1 games. Here is Final Fantasy 7 and 8, and as you can see, it is about the same size as those two cases stacked on top of each other. Very small. Digging a bit deeper into the box, there is a 120 watt power supply. There is an HDMI cable, as well as a stand. There is a mounting bracket. Not sure if I would use that or not, but it's kind of cool to have. Also an adapter for an additional drive, as well as some anti-skid pads if you need them. And so as you see, it comes with pretty much everything you would probably need. Like I mentioned, the CPU here is an AMD Ryzen 9 6900HX, and it has an integrated Radeon 680M GPU. And it supports DDR5 dual channel memory. Now, this device came to me pre-configured with 16 gigabytes, but you can go up to 64 gigabytes if you need it. As I walk around the device, you'll see that it's actually pretty flexible. Notice on the front there, you have a USB 4 port. That means you could very easily use an external graphics card to get more performance out of this if you wanted to. Now let's go ahead and swing around to the back, and you have a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port. You can plug in two HDMI cables. Now this does support 4K at 60 Hertz, as well as 4 Type A USB cables. It's a pretty flexible computer, especially considering its size. And when it comes to mini computers like this, or even laptops, the biggest issue with all of this is heat and how to manage it. The way they do that here is by pulling cold air in from two sides and then pushing it out through the other two sides. It's moving a lot of air very quickly, but I have to say that it's actually not very loud at all. I've been using this for almost 2 weeks now, playing a ton of games, and it never really gets louder than, say, a laptop, or maybe even a little bit quieter than that. But it's obviously going to depend on the game and how much it actually pushes the computer. But overall, I would say that this is a very quiet computer. And it comes pre-installed with a copy of Windows 11 Pro. As you might expect, this computer runs Windows 11 Pro very well. Everything is fast and zippy. Things like email, web browsing, they're going to be no problem here. I know people were kind of curious if it would support 4K YouTube videos, and you see a couple of them here. Handled it like a champ, no problems at all. I know people like benchmarks. Here's what it got in Cinebench running multi-core. You can see here it did pretty well, ranking number 4. And then here's how it ranked with just a single core, and as you see here, it is ranked number 1. Now, admittedly, I don't do a lot of benchmarking in my videos, but I did want to include it in this one for people who do care about that stuff. The bare bones version of this starts at $499. However, this review unit came pre-configured and cost about $650. Let's go ahead and check out some games, and I'm going to start with some newer ones. Forza Horizon 5 is an interesting one because I ran its initial benchmark, and it gave me a custom configuration that is a mix of medium and low settings. Now this is at 1080p, and we're trying to get a target of 60 frames per second. You definitely have some wiggle room here because I was able to manually bump up some of the environment settings, and there was no noticeable change to the frame rate. And as you can see, it looks really good. Now let's go ahead and check out a game called Trek to Yomi. And this game was a bit of a surprise because when you look at this, it looks like it would be fairly simple. To me, it doesn't look like a game that would push a graphics card or a graphics chip, but it does. Initially, I had the quality mode set to epic and it is struggling. It is dropping a couple frames here and there. It's certainly playable, but it's a little rough. And so I bumped the quality down to high and I definitely got a lot better results here. And again, we're running this at 1080p and trying to get that coveted 60 frames per second. Here is another game that can really push a graphics card, that is Stray. Stray is such a fun game. I've already played and beat it on my Steam Deck. Now here, I started it with high quality settings. I think that might actually be the default, I'm not sure. And it has a max frame rate of 60, but we are not hitting that consistently at all. It's more like in the 30s. What I had to do is bump the graphics settings down to medium, and now we're getting in the high 40s and the 50s, and it looks a lot better. And that's kind of the takeaway for this tiny computer when running the latest and greatest games. There are concessions that need to be made for its size. And I found that medium graphics settings is kind of where it's at. That's what its sweet spot is. Now let's go ahead and move on to some slightly older games, starting with Batman Arkham City. This is where things really improve. This game looks and runs really well. Now you can tell it's not running at a really high resolution and it doesn't have a lot of fancy graphical options, but the game is running pretty much flawlessly as far as I can tell. Now check out Hitman Absolution. This is the game running at 1080p with all high settings. At 1080p with high settings, your frame rate's gonna be in the 40s and 50s, but you're not gonna really hit 60 that often. However, again, bump that down to medium quality and then you get a rock solid 60 frames per second. Hitman Absolution does have a benchmarking tool in the game and you can push it to 4K, but as you see here, the frame rate really suffers. Here is Dishonored, Death of the Outsider. Now this game runs great at 60 frames per second, but you do need to have the resolution down at 1080p. Any higher than that and you're probably gonna be looking at 30 frames a second or maybe 40 max. It's going to be no surprise to anybody that Quake 2 runs really well on this machine. You see it here. You know, obviously these old school 90s games run like butter at max settings on this device. And speaking of older games, let's go ahead and check out some emulation. I was really curious to check this out because I do think that emulating the PlayStation 2 era, the GameCube era is becoming more and more popular with people. When I mentioned I was going to be doing this review, a lot of people wanted me to check this out. Here is Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2, a game that I know and love very well. This is the default graphics settings that are emulating that standard definition video out from the PlayStation 2. And it looks a little rough, especially on this 4K YouTube video, right? We can definitely do better, and here you go. So this is bumping up the quality mode, the I guess it's like the internal resolution of the PlayStation 2 emulation. And this is what I think a lot of people are very excited to see. And this device, no surprise, does it very well. And here is another favorite, SSX 3. I know I pretty much try to look for any excuse to talk about this game in my videos. And as you can see here, as an emulation machine for PlayStation 2 games, it works extremely well. Now let's go ahead and check out maybe some GameCube games. This is a game called Billy Hatcher. I covered this years ago in a Hidden Gems video. And actually, my buddy John Riggs was recently talking about it. I believe it is exclusive to the GameCube, and you see it running here. As well as the last Time Splitters game. This is Future Perfect. I love this game so much. The single player in this is hilarious and just epic. It's awesome. And it looks really good running on this, don't you think? Here is F-Zero GX, a game that is extremely fast, and this is able to handle it just fine. Now let's go ahead and check out some PSP emulation. What I'm looking for here is really just an upscaling and an improvement of the original graphics. And we definitely see that here. This is Daxter, a 3D platforming game that definitely has a higher resolution running on this emulator. It looks really good. Same thing with God of War. Here is Outrun 2006.
Let's start. I got chills.
And another game that is a bit of a hidden gem on the PSP called Mach. And so what do I think? Well, you know, at a starting price of $500, but really like the one that I have here as a review unit, it's $650. And at that price, you have to really think, do you need a mini computer to sit on your desk? Or if you're just doing gaming, maybe you should really look at something like the Xbox Series X. Now, a computer and a console are obviously not the same, but you really have to kind of weigh what you need it for. You know, a computer obviously is way more flexible. As you see here, you can play new and old games. You can obviously do computery stuff like browse the web or whatever, you know, check your email, all that. But as a gaming machine, you are making concessions because it is so small. And I have to admit, I do like its small factor. I mean, I'm kind of looking for something that is smaller, that can be in the living room, that doesn't take up a lot of space, almost like an Apple TV, but again, it's a full-blown computer. And so I do think it's actually pretty impressive for its size, but it's not going to be for everybody. But I would love to know what you think. Are you in the market for a mini PC like this, or do you prefer one that is full size, or maybe even a laptop? I'd love to hear what you think, so please post a comment down below. And as always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.